Today we're going to be working on Lesson 36, which is found on page 188 of your text. In this lesson, we're going to be subtracting mixed numbers and whole numbers. Let's go ahead and get started. Now in Lesson 36, we're going to be subtracting mixed numbers and whole numbers. So look at the problem that's in the middle of page 188. It's in italicized print. There were 4 pies on the shelf. The server sliced one of the pies into 6 and took 2 1/6 pies from the shelf. How many pies were left on the shelf? Well, we're told that we had 4 pies sitting on the shelf. And the server took one of the pies, divided it up into 6 equal parts, and took away 2 1/6 pies. So the server is going to come in and take away 2 whole pies, and then is going to take away 1/6 of the other pie. What would be left? Well, there would be 1 whole pie left, and then 5/6 of the other pie. So that's how many would be left. Now, if we wanted to show this on paper without using a diagram, we would say that we start out with 4 whole pies. Then we change these pies to be 3 whole pies and another 6/6 of a pie. Because notice that we took away one of the pies and we changed it to a pie that was divided up into 6 equal parts. And we had all 6 to start off with. Then we took away 2 1/6 of the pies. And we say that 6/6 minus 1/6 is 5/6. And 3 minus 2 is 1. And this is how we go about subtracting fractions from whole numbers. Okay, so let's look then at the example at the bottom of page 189. The example asks us to subtract, and we have 5 take away 1 2/3. Well, again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write this problem using a vertical method, and I need to do some changing. Instead of 5, I'm going to rewrite this as 4 wholes and then 3/3 of another whole. Because notice that down here I have a denominator of 3. That's why I chose 3/3. Then I can subtract 1 2/3 from that. 3/3 minus 2/3 is 1/3, and 4 minus 1 is 3. And so my difference would be 3 1/3. Now please note that 4 3/3 is the same thing as 4 plus 3/3, which is the same thing as 4 plus 1, which is the same thing as 5. So note that I'm not changing the value of this. I'm just changing its form. Okay, so why don't you try your practice problems and then come back and we'll work on those together. Okay, so we're subtracting mixed numbers from whole numbers, or sometimes subtracting whole numbers from mixed numbers, but we're working with both whole and mixed numbers in subtraction. Well, let's go ahead and try your practice problems and see how you did. Okay, practice problem A. We're asked to subtract 3 minus 2 1/2. Well, since we have a denominator of 2, we're going to change this to 2 wholes and then 2 halves. Then we can subtract 2 wholes and 1/2 from that. 2 halves minus 1/2 is 1/2, and 2 minus 2 is nothing. So then our problem here would be, our answer rather, or difference, would be 1/2. Problem B, we're asked to take 2 and subtract 1/4. Well, I'm going to change this to 1 4/4 so that I can then subtract 1/4. And 4/4 minus 1/4 is 3/4, and 1 minus nothing is 1. So then my answer would be 1 3/4. Problem C, we want to take 4 and subtract 2 1/4. Again, we change this to 3 4/4. And now we're going to take away 2 1/4, which is going to give us 1 3/4. Problem D, we're asked to take 3 and subtract 5/12. So again, we're going to change this to 2 12/12 so that we can subtract 5/12. 12 minus 5 is 7. That gives us 7/12, and 2 minus nothing is 2. So our difference would be 2 and 7/12. Problem E, we're asked to take 10 and subtract 2 and 1/2. So we're going to rewrite 10 as 9 and 2/2 so that we can subtract 2 and 1/2. And 2/2 minus 1/2 is 1/2, and 9 minus 2 is 7. So our difference would be 7 and 1/2. Problem F, 6 minus 1 and 3/10. We're going to change 6 to 5 and 10/10 so that we can subtract 1 and 3/10. And this would be 7/10, and this would be 4. So our difference would be 4 and 7/10. Now for problem G, we're told that there were 4 whole pies on the shelf. The server took 1 and 5/6 pies. How many pies were left on the shelf? Well, if the server took 1 and 5/6 pies off the shelf, and we started out with 4, we would subtract to find out how many were left. So we're going to change 4 to 3 and 6/6, and then subtract 1 and 5/6. And 6/6 minus 5/6 is 1/6, and 3 minus 1 is 2. So there would be 2 and 1/6 pies left on the shelf. So we would want then to put pies right here to make sure that our answer was specific. Then for problem H, it says write a problem similar to problem G and then find the answer. Well, let's say that there were 5 pies on the shelf. And remember that your problem might be different from mine. This is just an example. The server took 2 and 1/2 pies. How many pies were left? And we would say then that our solution can be found by taking 5 and subtracting 2 1/2. 5 is the same thing as 4 and 2/2, and we're subtracting 2 and 1/2, so our answer would be 2 and 1/2. So 2 and 1/2 pies then were left. Now, of course, your answer to that problem might be different from mine because your problem might be different. You were supposed to write your own. So I just gave you an example of what you might have written. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day and enjoy your math, and I'll see you tomorrow.